Hello there, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Retro Odyssey. This time we're going into a console special. First, I'll introduce myself and our hosts. I am, as always, Adam Miller. I'm joined by Matthew, joined by Stephen, and our guest host for today, Ryan. So I'm going to pass things over to Ryan, and he can get things kicked off.
All right. It's as Adam said, this is a console exclusive. It'll be focused on one console and one console only. So let's hop to a little history. Codename Project Reality. It was Nintendo's third internationally released home console and their fifth entry, or they're entering to the fifth generation of games and those game consoles. Project Reality during development experienced several delays and a couple name changes, including Ultra 64. And at this point, it's pretty obvious that the console we're talking about is the Nintendo 64. Finally released in June 1996 with a pretty impressive 300,000 units sold on the first day. The N64 went on to blow people away with fast, clean 3D rendering, bright, brilliant colors, and what is now a pretty famous lineup of exclusives. But we're not really here to talk about the history of the console and all its technical specs. We're here to talk about my favorite console. My brother first got a Nintendo 64 when I was 7 years old. It was probably, I think he got it for his birthday, so that would have been about May that it came in. And it just really, I grew up on the SNES and the NES, but this really just blew me away. It was such an amazing upgrade from the Super Nintendo. The weird 3-prong controller, it was responsive and crisp. It supported 4 people. Without an adapter. It no longer sounded video game music with beeps and boops. The music and the sound effects, they were real, especially at 7 years old. All the action and mayhem was pushed to the limits with all the extremely awesome games, like all the party games, the new 3D rendered shooters. There are honestly way too many games to talk about, so that's why I've chosen 4 games to kind of get a good feel of what it was. These are some of the best known games on the console. So, without further ado, let's roll on to it. We're going to start off with 1080 snowboarding. It was released in 1998 and sort of launched the extreme sports. It wasn't the very first one. I want to say Tony Hawk came first. I think it might have predated Snowboarding Kids, or they launched right about the same time. But it brought the quote-unquote realistic extreme winter sports, which then evolved into another 1080 title, the SSX Tricky Games.
So was this the first, proper snowboarding game then?
I want to say it was one of them. Obviously, we've had plenty of other winter sport games. I mean, we already covered, we've talked about Horosco skiing, and I know that there were plenty of other skiing style games in the past. Ski Freak, yeah, things like that. But I believe this is one of the first, especially in the 3D rendered realm, that really brought it to life and brought a level of excitement to it. As a kid, this game was hard as hell. It still is hard as hell.
You're not joking.
I'm not. It really is a difficult game. The input is not snappy. It is, honestly, as far as control goes, it is relatively realistic because you just don't snap back and forth when you're blasting down a mountainside. It's not just turn left and right. There's a lot more that goes into it. It's slippery and icy, so that feels right. You don't get absolutely bonkers amounts of air when you jump. They tried to keep it a little bit closer to Earth.
Yeah.
Pardon the pun there.
There's certainly a lot of realism in the fact that I can't snowboard in real life, and I also can't snowboard in this game.
Yeah. In the game, I kind of fell flat on my face quite a few times when I was first starting, which, honestly, I think is probably close to what would happen if I actually tried snowboarding.
Also, you can't take infinite hits. So.
No, I've never been snowboarding. Can't stand the cold.
I've been snowboarding once, and that is very much what it was like.
What, falling on your face?
Yes.
Oh, how fun.
call this 1080 snowboard. It should have been called Snowboarding Simulator.
Yeah. Has
If it was
anyone
made
actually
now,
played
probably
this
would be.
game before, apart from you, Ryan?
No,
No,
I've
never.
never played it.
Yeah, it's my first time too.
It was pretty well known on the N64. It is a Nintendo IP. This is their own IP. So
Yeah, I was very aware of the game. I'd definitely heard of it before, but I just never played it because, the snowboarding game never really appealed to me.
hmm
But yeah, the game's pretty hard to get to grips with.
With it being a Nintendo exclusive, does that mean that the PSP 1080 game isn't part of that series?
I wasn't even aware of a 1080 game
Yeah, I don't
on
remember.
the PSP.
I don't remember the exact title, but it's a snowboarding game and it starts with 1080.
There was one for the GameCube, which was that Avalanche, I want to say?
Yes, that was a much superior installment. This game, as far as I know, 1080 only had 2 installments, one on the 64 and one on the GameCube. And it was about that time that snowboarding games were starting to kind of die out a little bit. So it wasn't really popular to continue on to like the Wii. Although we're picking back up on the extreme sports category a little bit, so maybe we'll see another 1080 installment in the next couple years.
Yeah, possibly. I'm just looking at PSP, and there was an SSX game, which I can see, and it's Sean White, but I can't seem to see any PSP game.
Same. I can't see a SSX Sean White. I'm not seeing anything here for the PSP.
I may have got the name wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I was pretty sure it was a Nintendo thing. But it could just have had a similar title, to be honest.
Quite possibly. No, this game really stuck with me as a kid. I never owned it until probably 6 or 7 years ago, honestly. I always borrowed it from a friend, and it really, really it stuck with me because it's honestly a very good-looking game for the N64.
Definitely.
Considering the hardware they were working at the time, the splash from the snow, the trails cut through the snow from your board, the models were actually pretty well rendered, obviously because they did lots of 2D backdrops and environment with the trees and whatnot. So they were able to focus on, they weren't trying to render gigantic worlds, they were rendering a slope.
Yeah, and even the sound effects as well, when you're actually going down the slope, it's... it's got really good sound effects for the movement of the snowboard and everything, and as you jump in. And then you've got the licensed soundtrack, which I assume it's a licensed soundtrack. It sounded like it was songs, but I've never heard them before.
I'm not entirely sure it's licensed. All I know is it's very late 90s, early 2000 tone, and while the quality is pretty good, it's also a tiny bit cringy.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to what you'd find in Tony Hawk, but none of these songs I'd actually heard before, so maybe it's licensed with just really obscure songs, but it certainly seems like licensed music.
Let's see if that's licensed. I never thought about that. I always assumed it was just an original soundtrack.
It could be. It's just a bit of a weird choice for an original soundtrack to have these kind of cringy 90s songs. I mean, we're not looking at Sonic R at the moment, we're looking at 1080 snowboarding. But I found the music pretty good, to be honest. Even when I was failing quite a lot, I found that the music was good enough to make me want to continue a little bit more. But I found the difficulty overall to be the most punishing thing, and that kind of got me in the end, to be honest. Don't know about you guys.
I tried for a very long time to actually finish a race, and I just couldn't. It was I could go a certain speed, but as soon as you started having to turn corners and jump over stuff and stuff like that, I would fall every single time. And it seems like once you fall once, your opponent is just way too far ahead to catch up.
I found the same.
I had a similar experience.
The learning curve on it is quite steep. Just to gain control of the board and then understand where to. It's kind of like if you were to jump from or just go straight into Gran Turismo. It's not Cruis'n USA.
Yeah, I think it's one of those games that you kind of had to have as a child. When you only had maybe 1 or 2 games and you had to stick with it until you basically learned it. Because I found that, in this day and age, I played it for like, an hour and a half, 2 hours or so, and I just kept failing and failing and failing, and I just thought, I can't play it anymore. It's just, I'm just getting irritated. I want to move on to something else.
That sounds about me when I tried picking it or playing it again a couple years ago. It was just a lot harder than I remembered. Like, I was still enjoying it, but I wasn't doing nearly as well as I used to.
Yeah, I think you've really got to learn it and know how to play it in order to do well.
And play it often.
Yeah, you have to keep up them reflexes. It's like working out. Don't skip leg day.
Yeah. Is a sequel as punishing as this?
It is. The computer is difficult because they board perfectly, but the courses and control aren't as brutal.
Yeah.
So no, it's still difficult when you get into the harder, harder race difficulties.
Yeah.
But it's not nearly as punishing. 1080 Avalanche is by far a superior game. Plus, as the name implies, you do get to actually race a avalanche.
That's pretty cool. That does actually sound really awesome.
When you finish the final race, you get to just blast down the mountain. I can't remember what they call the challenge, but about halfway through, there's a couple points down the mountain where you can trigger an avalanche, and one of them's guaranteed to trigger the avalanche. And then at that point, you have to outrace. It's essentially snowboard or die at that point, and it's pretty cool because you can actually. Cool. Yeah, you can actually, the avalanche will actually start closing in on you if you're not going fast enough, and you can watch it wipe out trees and cabins and everything behind you.
That sounds pretty ace.
Yeah,
no, it's happening this one.
It's super cool. And again, that's not an expensive game to grab either for GameCube. I think it's like, I saw it at a local shop for like $11, and I saw on eBay it's about $10.
Yeah, I think I'll skip it though. If it's as punishing as this one, then.
Oh, it's not. It's not anywhere near as punishing. The controls a lot tighter. You get a lot more fun stuff in it. Like one of the snowboards you unlock is an NES controller.
That's pretty cool. So, what are the unlocks like in this one then? As I said, I didn't really get far, so I didn't unlock like anything.
The unlocks in 1080, they're as you win races and complete, like, I believe some of them are locked behind like stunt challenges and high scores and stuff on like the ski jump. You mostly just unlock snowboards. There are just a whole bunch of snowboards to unlock, and they offer different abilities. But as you complete the actual like campaign challenges, you start unlocking secret riders. You have to. I don't think it's just win. I think you have to set a couple times during the actual race, and then you'll finish off with a race against a secret rider. The first is the panda rider, who is, it's a panda in like a snowsuit.
Nice.
The second one is Crystal Rider, and it's like this polygonal. I don't know if anybody here has played Smash 64. If you remember the Fighting Polygon team.
Yes.
Oh yeah, it's like one of those.
Yeah, the Crystal Rider looks like that, but kind of like a translucent pink, if I remember.
All right, cool.
And then the very final race is against the Metal Rider, and he's like bronze, same design but bronze. And when you actually unlock those, they just don't come available in the lodge as a select skier. You actually have to input you have to pan across the riders in a certain direction, and then one of them is replaced with that said rider. So, like, the super duper blonde dude I believe he becomes the panda rider, the Asian chick becomes the crystal rider, and then the big heavy Japanese dude becomes the metal rider. And they all have their own specific stats. Like, the panda rider has a really high jump and is really maneuverable. The crystal rider is super fast and super maneuverable but has really low stamina. And the metal rider can't turn worth a damn, but he can take a beating, and he's also insanely fast in a straight line.
Yeah. Well, it's funny how you mentioned the lodge. That was one of the things that I was thinking about the game, is the overall presentation, which I thought was kind of nice. Like, when you go into the character select screen, you've got the lodge, and they're all kind of hanging around doing their own different thing as you select them.
Then when you go over to pick your board, it just doesn't go pick up board. It kicks you over to the rack.
Yeah. And I kind of thought it's just like little touches like that which make you think kind of a neat little game. Just a shame I couldn't play it.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing.
Basically exactly my feelings.
That's another thing you unlock. One of the challenges that you do, you actually end up unlocking a penguin for a snowboard.
So instead of a snowboard?
Like an actual penguin. You ride a penguin down the mountain.
Nice.
So it's just like Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah, no, quite literally, except this came first, so who ripped off who?
That's pretty cool.
And I know that was the cool thing is the penguin board actually has very specific stats. There's a couple slopes where you hit ice, so like iced over pavement, or just kind of like an icy section, like an icy cave. And you just start slipping and sliding all over the place because that's not what snowboards are meant to go over. But the penguin board handles really, really well on them. It goes a little bit slower through the snow, but it grips onto the ice, which is the secret to, I believe, beating the Metal Rider. Because you have to do like the village, and I think the slope is called Dragon Cave, and there's just each of them has an icy section on there. And he has to slow down a lot through there because he can't handle very well. And if you have the penguin board, you can just slam right past him.
That is amazing. I've just had a quick look on YouTube, and I've seen the Panda Rider on the penguin snowboard, and it's just the best thing.
I know.
The little penguin
really
even curves up. Yeah, when you're jumping, you see like the front end of the penguin just kind of curve up, like he's bracing himself. Pretty neat.
It's a good time.
Yeah. I'll say I kind of thought, the overall presentation, the look of it and the feel of it was kind of good. But honestly, I didn't really have that good a time with the game just because I found it a little too difficult.
Yeah, me as well.
It seemed to me like it was a lot of good ideas that just ended up being a little too hard.
And that's really what it is this almost comes off as more of a proof of concept than more of like a polished game. And that's why Avalanche feels so much better being on superior hardware, having
the experience
I think about
this one.
5 more years between games.
Yeah,
I want to say it was about 5 years. So it was a better feeling game. It was a better executed game. But that doesn't mean that 1080 doesn't deserve its note, especially as being one of the extreme sports, which were super popular in the 5th generation of console.
Yeah, there were. There were quite a few of those kind of games. There's a lot of cycling games, skateboarding games. You got your snowboarding games.
Oh yeah, they were all over the place. And I believe that this is a worthy contribution to that.
Yeah,
genre.
It's quite a cheap game as well, isn't it? You were saying.
Yeah, 1080 is actually not expensive. It'll run you around $10. I'm not sure if that is with or without case, but I mean, $10 for a game isn't too terrible.
I hope sellers have the common sense to charge $10.80 for it. If not, they're missing a trick.
That's just missed opportunity if you're not doing that.
Exactly. If it's going for a tenner, you might as well.
But I believe I've said everything there is to say about 1080. I don't know if anybody else has anything else they want to chip in before we move on to our next selection.
Not from me.
No.
As I said, I didn't really get far enough to talk about like any of the other tracks or anything.
All right. Next game I chose here was 007 GoldenEye, released in 1997, developed by Rareware, exclusively for the N64, as all of the games on this list are. GoldenEye kind of set the new standard for FPSs and Battle Royale. Doom obviously predates it, but this kind of set what we expected from them. And it only went uphill from there, being succeeded by another 007 game and a game we covered, I believe, last time, Perfect Dark.
No, that was in our very first episode, I believe.
Was that the very first episode? Okay, so that was...
Yeah, favorite games.
Oh, that was 2 times ago. Okay, yeah. Oh, you're right. You're right.
The last one was the shit game episode, if you remember.
I try to forget.
No surprise.
As do we all.
I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry for what I did to you.
I think we're all sorry.
GoldenEye was a much better game than any of all of those. It wasn't again, this was the start of it. We did see improvement from the team through further games, but it by no means is GoldenEye a bad game. And it was one of the bigger games that really took off that was actually licensed and not shit. That's
Yeah.
kind of important because there were a lot of licensed games that were terrible previous
I mean,
to
even
this.
to this
Still
day.
is.
Yeah, we still get a lot of licensed games, but this was kind of the upswing at that point.
I believe GoldenEye started out as a rail shooter for the SNES, didn't it?
I mean, I'm actually not sure about that, but I would very much believe it.
Yeah, I think they wanted
Yeah.
to do that, and then they upgraded hardware to the 64 and decided that it would be better if people had control of the character.
Yeah, partially conceived as an on-rail shooter inspired by Sega's Virtua Cop before being redesigned.
Yeah, I thought so. But it's such a weird story on how they actually made it because it's quite revolutionary, really, because you've got these maps as well that feel like real locations.
Mm-hmm.
And the team have said in interviews that they designed the locations first and they built the missions around it, which is why you've got this kind of open-ended feel to the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. It's been a long time since I've watched the movie GoldenEye. It doesn't really seem to follow the story particularly well. It mostly just does a lot of name dropping.
It follows like the locations of the film,
Yeah,
but
and it
not necessarily the story.
and it covers a couple like primary
Set
plot
pieces.
twists.
Yeah. But then you've got some stuff like the silo level, which you think, where the hell was that in the film?
Yeah, I don't remember this at all.
Yeah. But, yeah, it's quite interesting. I say I quite like the feel of the levels, having this structure where they give you a bunch of objectives and you just do them in whatever order you want. Very rarely do you have to do things in a specific order, except for when it's like a plot thing.
No, and the other thing I did like, similar how they continued the tradition in Perfect Dark, was the game itself doesn't get a lot harder as you up the difficulty,
But you get
Like
more
the
stuff to do.
but you just have to do more and more things
Yeah, definitely.
versus just making the computer crack shots and allowing them to be bullet sponges.
Yeah. I mean, I would kind of say that they pulled it off a little bit better in Perfect Dark because I find that the design of the levels and the mission structure isn't quite as tight as in Perfect Dark. But I still think they did a good job in this.
Yeah, I think quite a lot of aspects of the game do unfortunately kind of suffer from having Perfect Dark come out and do quite a lot of it better. And I think I enjoyed this less because I played Perfect Dark first.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And again, we mentioned it previously, another reason that Perfect Dark just honestly shits on 007, let's not sugarcoat this, is Perfect Dark has a coherent story. And
Yeah.
a really wacky story that pulls you in, whereas 007 doesn't. If you haven't seen the movie, you're never really going to understand what's going on other than espionage. That's all you really know is espionage and some escort missions.
I think this is really just a companion to the film, which, you know, if you've not seen the film, you're not really going to get what's going on. Even like if you read all the mission briefings and everything, you kind of only get a gist.
I did read all the mission briefings, but towards the end, I just found myself completely lost in the story. I basically just looked at the objectives, and I was like, right, I need to do that, that, and that. I couldn't really equate that to the story as much because at that point, it was kind of getting so convoluted that it was just hard to follow.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think definitely watching the film first does help with some of them. Like, for example, on the final mission where you have to go to the bottom of that little shack and knock him off. I think that if you didn't know about that, you'd probably kind of walk around thinking, where the hell is he?
Yeah, and keep in mind, again, the film was really important. It released, I don't even think, quite 2 years prior to the game being released, so this was still fresh and relevant. I mean, if you asked a lot of people, have you seen, you know, of the following generation after ours, hey, have you ever seen GoldenEye 007? They'd be like, why, no.
But
the James Bond movies that they know are the Daniel Craig ones.
Daniel Craig ones.
Right.
But it's still kind of weird because now that you mention it, the game did actually come out a fair bit after the film. Normally they kind of tie in and come out the same time, but
Well,
didn't
now it
this come
actually.
out like same time as Tomorrow Never Dies or something?
I think Tomorrow Never Dies was 99, maybe late 98.
Wasn't there like supposed to be a 2-year gap between every James Bond film or something? And I think
That
there was a gap. Yeah, I think normally every film has a 2-year gap. That's why I was thinking that maybe this came out maybe just slightly before Tomorrow Never Dies.
Well, to the movie Tomorrow Never Dies was released in 97.
Okay, and this was August 1997.
And
That's
Tomorrow
when-
Never Dies was released in 99, end of 99. But that was also released on PlayStation. So
Yeah.
that got a little bit more, that got around a little bit more. I believe it was still, that actually might not have been Rare that did Tomorrow Never Dies. No, that was EA and MGM Interactive.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
December 1995 was the film, and August 1997 was the game.
Although that may be down to, as you mentioned before, it was originally being developed for a different platform.
Yeah.
And then they had to, then when the N64 was released, they switched gears. The N64 was supposed to release in 1995 and got pushed back to mid-2000 or 2006. Wow, that's a long delay. It got pushed back to mid-96 versus early 95. So
Yeah. It's still kind of strange though, because normally you'd have thought the movie company would have had issues with it coming so long after, because normally
Yeah.
you tie them in together so that you kind of leech popularity off each other.
I mean, it's not a terrible idea when you think about it. It keeps the franchise alive because, it keeps it fresh in everybody's mind. And then the new movie comes out and everybody has a good time. Keep the hype built.
Yeah, I think the good thing as well is that with the game, obviously it does have issues with the plot, but on the plus side, it does its own thing. It's not tied to the plot so tightly. Like a lot of video games based on films, they try to follow the film point by point, and it kind of feels like something's lost in the translation, whereas this concentrates on being a video game first.
Right. Which is probably a better approach anyway.
Yeah, I definitely think that it was kind of better in the long run for it.
But enough about the face of GoldenEye. Let's talk about what everybody remembers about it. The watch menu. No, although that was fun. The multiplayer.
Well, the watch menu is actually one of the things I don't like about the game.
Oh, but it
Because
looks
it's
so
one of those
stylish.
things where you go into this stupid little animation and you get shot at the same time. It's like at least
That-
pause the game for me first.
Right. Time doesn't stop.
Yeah. I mean, it's more realistic, but it is a bit annoying. But yeah, the multiplayer. I never really played the multiplayer that much as a child, to be honest. I always played the multiplayer more for Perfect Dark, because in GoldenEye I found it quite limited that you only could have 4 players. Which, I mean, at the time was good, but it still kind of feels like you go around these big maps and it takes a while to see anyone.
Versus Perfect Dark, you can have, 8 bots running around?
Yeah, exactly. I think I kind of felt like something was missing a lot of the time if you didn't have a full 4 players. Like if you're doing 1v1, you could walk around and just not find each other. Especially if you're on something like, the underground cavern level where everything looks the same. So you can't even cheat and look at the other person's screen.
Right. No
But-
screen peeking.
Yeah.
Well, when I was younger, this was kind of like a favourite party game. If I was at a party and the host had an N64, then 4-player split screen we would spend hours on that, and it was a hell of a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed the golden gun mode. It's like a one-hit kill, and
Oh,
to
yeah,
be honest,
definitely.
we kind of encourage looking at everyone else's screen and kind of like chasing each other down and stuff.
It's a legitimate strategy.
I think it was a lot more fun that way. But we played it a lot, and although there was kind of like a lot of slowdown, graphically it isn't as good as a single player, obviously, because you've got to render 4 different players. But I think it really, really works. I mean, in terms of modern day shooters, yeah, there are a lot of improvements nowadays. But back then, that was one of the only places that you could get together with several friends and shoot each other on a console game, because the internet wasn't really a thing back then. I mean, it was around, but not widely available. So split screen was your only option, and Doom didn't have a split screen option. So
No, it had a. Well, and if you were playing Doom on PC, you had to lug your machine around and do a
Yeah.
LAN party.
Yeah.
But GoldenEye was like one of the first FPSs that actually had that feature, and as a result of that, it got played a hell of a lot. And I actually didn't play the single player until we did it for this podcast, but I've played hours of the multiplayer.
That's weird because when I had it, I played pretty much entirely single player and barely touched the multiplayer. I played it like a few times, but for me, it was all about the single player, which I just played again and again.
See, I was in kind of a weird spot with this one because this is one of those games that I never played until we started it for this. I had never touched this game before.
Oh, congratulations! We popped your GoldenEye cherry.
I thought it was a pretty good game. I struggled a bit with some control issues, but I mean I could tell that I had a good game on my hands and just didn't get all the way through it.
Yeah.
It did do a weird thing where everything was shot from the hip, and being shot from the hip, you didn't have a reticle.
Right.
And that made it a little weird. And then when you did hard aim on weapons you could, you sort of like just kind of moved a cursor around the screen as you stood there, which felt a little weird.
That cursor was really difficult to move around, especially on stuff like the sniper rifle.
Oh yeah, the sniper rifle might have been the easiest one to do when you were zoomed in, but trying to actually get hard aims, and it was pretty unnecessary too, because the aim assist in the game is pretty strong, so it's not a huge deal.
Well, you're doing something wrong there. The trick is, in the center of your television, you've got to get a magic marker and put like a little dot, and that's how you do it.
And that works for basically every game too.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's a pretty good game. Like with Perfect Dark, you've got a load of unlockables, which I found to be, a brilliant addition. Like you can unlock all the multiplayer characters by beating the game, and then you've got all the different cheats to mess around with.
Big head mode and tiny mode.
Yeah.
Like super speed.
Yeah. They're all good fun.
Infinite ammo, twin dual wield, running around with like two rocket launchers and stuff like that, and multiplayer was just really turned it into just bonkers mayhem.
Do any of the cheat modes include a map? Because it needs a map. It really needs a map.
It does not have a map.
Because I was just wandering around for ages trying to find stuff.
Yeah, I think it's one of those games where you just kind of need to learn where stuff is. And that's what I meant before about Perfect Dark doing it a little bit better, because, you did have some levels which were a bit of a maze. But in this, I think if you don't have experience with the game, you can get a little bit lost. Like on the streets level, where loads of the streets lead to dead ends if you don't know where you're going.
I was just about to mention that. It was that the streets in Germany, where it's just going in and out of buildings and all over the place. No clue where you're actually supposed to be going.
Yeah. By the way, on the streets level, did everyone use the tank?
Oh. I mean, not using the tank is a sin there.
I did not use a tank.
I used the tank when I first played the game, and then I've never used it since because running's faster.
It is faster, but nothing kills faster than the tank.
Yeah, true, it is pretty cool, but I never really bother with it, to be honest. To be honest, I kind of think that the streets level is kind of weird because you compare it to the film, and there are all these cars everywhere and all this stuff happening. But then in the game, the streets are kind of empty. And you get that with a few of the levels, like especially the levels in the snow, the surface levels. Mm-hmm. You walk through it and you're just like, there's nothing here.
I think that might be down to technical limitations, though, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, you get other levels where there's a lot of stuff happening, like the Aztec level and the Silo level and, even like the frigate level. but I
Did,
found that some of the levels weren't quite as exciting as some of the other ones.
did anybody get to try any of the bonus levels?
Yes,
I did not.
I'm very familiar with both of them.
I personally enjoy the Moonraker level just because it's a little silly.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard.
Oh no,
Like,
it's very hard.
I'm very familiar with the level, but even I find it quite challenging, even on easy. And then you've got the other level, which has Baron Samedi and the Golden Gun, but it's a piece of cake even on the hardest difficulty. It's a really weird kind of... Yeah, it's really weird. I'd have thought that the Egyptian level would have been the reward for Secret Agent, and then the hard Moonraker level would have been the final one,
Wrong.
but
Does
yeah, the
anybody?
Aztec one's really cool.
Oh yeah. Does anybody recall what their favorite level was?
I really liked the Congo level, mainly because whilst every other level has music and they're all variations of the main theme and it gets on your nerves like really quickly, the Congo level didn't have any music, and I believe that's because of technical limitations, but it made it really atmospheric. Now, you didn't have great draw distance in that level. You really
Oh
couldn't
god, it
see
was terrible.
more than like 20 feet in front of your face.
And the
But
turrets, they put the turrets in there all over the place.
yeah, it was a difficult level to get through, but I felt that the atmosphere of the level, because it didn't have the music, was it was kind of creepy in a way and a little bit cloying, even though it was like a wide open space. And I really enjoyed it because of that.
It's a shame it runs at like 5 frames per second.
Yeah.
I've not seen
The-
that frame rate since Turok 2 on the N64.
The secret to the Congo level is to creep through really slowly with your PP7 out, which also you can get a restraining order for. Haha. Is to creep through slowly and look for your gun to twitch. Because when your gun twitches, there's something to shoot nearby, even if they're not shooting at you yet. Again,
I
because the
just
draw
run
distance...
around the outskirts.
Oh, that works too. But because the draw distance is so bad.
Yeah, just go around the outskirts, throw remote mines at the turrets, and run to Xenia.
It's actually, if you slam through it, you can actually get to that mission really fast.
Yeah, but it's so difficult to do just because of how slow the level runs.
What about you,
But-
Adam? What was your favorite level?
Well, maybe the frigate level or the Aztec level, but I also really like the depot level as well. The frigate level I just really like the design of, because on the harder difficulty modes you're going through and you need to defuse the bombs in the engine room, save the hostages, and I think the level's just quite a good looking level. And the Aztec level has got like loads going for it. There's all these secret routes. There's the main route, you have to go and fight Jaws, which is kind of cool.
It's a bit of an open maze, though. You can kind of lose your bearing pretty quickly in there.
Yeah, definitely. There's a trick to it, though, where you can kind of skip Jaws, though, which, I always kind of do because he's got, like, loads of health.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, basically, the glass door that you need to open?
Mhm.
You can trick the guards into opening it. You just kind of let one of them run after you, and you get out of his line of vision, and he just opens the glass door thinking you're inside.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's weird. And then, yeah, I like the depot one, but I really like the music for that level.
Steven?
I'm gonna have to say the first one because that's the only one I really saw a whole lot of. I had a lot of problems with my copy of the game and my controls and stuff, so I didn't get very far at all.
Yeah, I think the dam level is a pretty good level, though.
I mean, it's a really good intro to the game, also for
Yeah.
bungee jumping off of it for some reason.
Yeah.
Without a bungee rope.
Without bungee rope. It's just called jumping.
Yeah.
A fun thing about the dam level is that the mountains in the distance are 3D rendered. It's not just a texture.
Huh.
If you can get a rocket launcher, whether you hack it in there with the all weapons cheat, or I think on one of the higher difficulties there is just a rocket launcher hiding somewhere, you can launch a rocket at the mountain, and it takes a couple seconds to get there, but it does explode
It
on the
does, yeah.
mountain.
And there's actually as well, like across from the dam, there's like a weird little island as well in the distance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you knew about that.
No, there's a lot of stuff, and those levels are truly 3D rendered. Everything about them, which again probably that only contributes to the chug when things starts getting a little hectic.
Yeah.
They probably could have cheated a little bit and just done a backdrop in the map, and that would have helped out instead of 3D rendering a giant skybox.
I did have a little bit of a problem with the dam, though, which kind of set me off on the wrong foot straight away because I couldn't work out what I needed to do. I went through like most of the level, and you come across this gate which has got a lock on it, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna have to shoot that lock, and threw a few shots at it. It didn't come off, so I thought, okay, that's not the way to go, and I ended up like wandering around almost like right at the start of the level again to try and find out what I needed to do to continue. And it turned out, I ended up having to watch a guide for it on YouTube, and it turned out that I do need to shoot that lock, and just sometimes the bullets will just pass through it. And you kind of like need like several shots to kind of like line up properly, because sometimes it just won't work, even though you're pointing directly at it.
I don't think I've ever had that happen, but I think I normally do fire like a few shots.
That's kind of like the one of the later missions. I think it's one of the very last missions, the train.
Oh yeah, where you've got to shoot the
put the locks around the thing.
Yeah, you have to laser off all the bolts, and it is just getting the register. Like, thank God the laser shoots has an insane amount of ammo, and it shoots really fast, because you really do have to almost. I think what they were going for was you're cutting the bottom off out of the train.
You know what the issue with that is? It's actually to do with the frame rate. So when the guards come, you kind of have to make sure that you kill all the guards and keep on top of them as they start coming in. Because if the game's got like a lot more, shit to do, then it has problems with the bolts. Which I think on the American version, it has a bit more of an issue with frame rate. So it's supposed to be easier on the PAL version, but yeah, it is a bit of a pain.
I recall failing that mission so many times in a row because, well, it's hard.
You can actually shoot it. You can shoot it with your gun as well. You can
but the laser shoots so much faster and more consistently.
Speaking of the train level, did anyone fail the objective for rescuing Natalia?
Yes. I've so many times with Natalia, anytime Natalia's there, I failed it, usually by accidentally shooting Natalia.
Yeah.
But sometimes
she really
as well.
She really likes to wander in the front of your gun.
Well, the thing is, Oronov as well, he's got quite a quick reaction time, so he does shoot her pretty fast. He doesn't have much time to react. There have been many times I've messed it up just by, missing my shot, and then he's killed her.
Every single level that had Natalia in, she died at some point.
I mean, I've gotten so frustrated with the Natalia levels with the escorts, like, is it which one is it? Which bunker is it where she's hacking and you have to protect her from the hackers?
The control center.
Yeah, control center, and then you have to like escort her out really quick, but she'll run right out into the fire and start shooting, and immediately get shot to pieces.
Yeah, that level's a bit of a pain.
So you have to like run out ahead of her and make sure you're wiping stuff out faster than she can move.
Thing is as well, like on the hardest difficulty, you have to keep her alive, but you've also got to keep yourself alive as well, and it's tough. I find that the best thing to do is to, before you go and get Natalia, you've got to shoot all the tables and the computers and everything, and it gives you an open space in order to actually get your shots off. But it also improves the frame rate as well. So,
and it reduces the damage because everything in that game explodes.
Exactly as well. So if she's near an exploding thing,
it'll hurt her or just straight up kill her. Another thing I found out about 007, this was a really weird design choice, was enemies have set spawn locations. And it's almost always behind you or somewhere kind of out of sight. But they will just spawn out of thin air in those locations. But if you kill the enemies in a room and then check every corner of the room where they could spawn, they'll stop spawning there. With the exception of like an alarm being set off. So you can stop enemies from spawning in a level completely as long as you check all spawn points once the enemies are dead.
Yeah.
And that's kind of weird. Then if you set an off alarm, like get, caught by a camera or something like that, then you're kind of screwed. But that's just because they spawn way too many enemies, basically forever.
Yeah.
And that's not a good time.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, did anyone on the final mission kill Trevelyan before he went to the bottom platform bit?
I've done that a couple times.
It's always fun when that happens because he's like, let's go and finish this. And then he's just a dead corpse on the floor as he's saying it.
No, I killed him on the little platform.
Yeah, that platform always gives me the heebie-jeebies when I have to go down there. I find it's just
small.
safer too.
Really high up, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's such a small little platform. I find that I always just use the trick. I think I showed you a video for it where he kills himself with a grenade.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen too.
Yeah. The AI is pretty stupid in the game.
It's not great.
Yeah, like a lot of time you can get guards to open locked doors and stuff just because they want to get to you. And it's like, okay, thanks. And then as you said about Natalia as well.
Just wandering out into the gunfire.
Yeah, she's pretty stupid.
Yeah, it pretty much covers it. Not 1080. GoldenEye was I'm not going to say it's a great game, but I will say, and I think most of you will agree, that it was a very impactful game.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a good game, but I don't think it deserves quite as much reputation as it's got because I think Perfect Dark just does everything like way better.
It's definitely underrated. It's definitely overrated, and Perfect Dark is definitely underrated.
Yeah. Oh, one thing as well, I don't know if you noticed with the music, but like every music track is the James Bond theme, just with a slightly different mix to fit with the level, which I thought was kind of nice.
The train version was like a funky, jazzy thing, which just sounded weird.
Yeah, it's kind of odd. I think the only track that's different is, when you get in the elevators and it's got the cheesy little elevator music.
Yeah, but it's like super classic James Bond theme.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention, my favorite level was also the frigate. I'd have to agree with you, Adam. It was a very tight, well-designed level. And I think because it's so much smaller than the other ones, it runs better.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Just throw that out there.
Yeah. But like with the music, I think the music is like really good, even if it is just like the main theme over and over again.
Just remixes upon remixes.
Yeah. If you've got time, you should check out Golden Fly, which is like it's the music from James Bond, but with rap music placed over the top, and it's really good.
You shared some of those, and they were amazing.
Yeah, there's one for like every single level, like even the game over screen and stuff. It's got like these rap tunes just over the top by like Dr. Dre and other rappers, which I don't remember the names of because I don't really listen to rap.
Good fun time.
Yeah. But it's pretty cool. They've actually done those with a bunch of different music tracks. There's one for Ocarina of Time, which is pretty good too.
I have to check that one out.
I think there's one for Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, I really have to check that one out.
Yeah, I think that one's done by Teamwork. But yeah, check them out. They're pretty cool.
All right. Well, if that's all there is to say about that right now, I think we'll take a quick break and move on to the next title.
Okie dokie.
The third game we'll be talking about today is Mario 64, released in June 1996, right alongside the release of the Super Nintendo, the N64. It was a day one launch, and it is probably one of the most memorable and famous N64 games, being Mario's first 3D adventure. I could gush about this game forever. It is one of my favorite Mario games, hands down. It is one of my favorite 3D platformers, hands down. But I'm not going to go and do that. I'm just going to let you three tell about the experiences, because I'm pretty sure you've all played it before, and if you haven't, then I'm really interested to hear what you have to say, and I'll just sort of chip in now and then. What did you think?
I had experience with it before. I remember playing it as a child at my friend's house, because he actually had the game and not me. But yeah, it's a good game.
It's actually funny. That was my first experience as well. Was we hadn't gotten the N64 yet. We got it about almost a year after it came out. But my friend had an N64 when it was new, and he also had Mario 64, and that was the first time I got to play it. And then I didn't touch an N64 for almost a year after that.
I don't think
For
I
me-
got Mario 64 until like a year after or something.
I mean, before we talk about the actual game, I just want to talk about the kind of like run up to the game and the hype around it, because up to that point, Mario had been like purely 2D and really well regarded 2D platformers as well. So when Nintendo announced that there would be a 3D Mario game, everyone was like, how is that going to work? That is the stupidest idea ever. It's going to be terrible.
Really?
Why are you like killing off Mario? It's like all myself, all of my friends, we were like, this is just never ever ever going to work. And then it came out. I actually got the N64 and the game on launch. It was like a bundle pack, and I wasn't really like looking forward to it because I just didn't really expect that it would be any good. But then you play it, and within 5 minutes, you kind of like, this is the greatest thing ever. You know, it is like such immediately satisfying to move Mario around in that 3D world, and every kind of thought you had before that it wouldn't work just vanishes, and you just immediately transported to this 3D world, and it's just like a magical feeling to be able to move him around in that kind of space and have it be fun and intuitive.
I was never really aware of all that kind of, not backlash, I suppose, but negative hype maybe. Because I always had like the I always had the Mega Drive. So that was actually my first Mario game, because my friend actually had the N64, and then I think we played Mario 64, Bomberman 64, and Lila Wars. And that kind of prompted me into getting the N64 as my next console, which is why I then ended up getting that instead of something like the Saturn, which, you know, with my love for the Saturn now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is another issue. But yeah, Mario 64, I played it and thought it's a good game, because I never really expected much from Mario, because, you know, back in the era of the console wars, if you're with Sonic, you just kind of assume that Mario was shit. And then you play it and you're like, actually, it's okay.
And then it was followed up by the abomination of Sonic 3D Blast.
God, yeah. Sonic's first 3D adventure was Sonic 3D Blast. That was a sign of things to come.
It was not great.
For me, I got in actually a lot later than you guys. It was Christmas 1997. I got a Nintendo 64, Super Mario 64, and Diddy Kong Racing. So it was almost 1998 before I even played this game. But I absolutely loved it. Like, you know, because I grew up on the original Nintendo and Super Nintendo. So when I saw the 3D Mario, I was like, oh man, this is so good.
This is everything I've ever wanted.
Yeah.
I really felt that, I no longer have these feelings. I've changed my mind now. I really feel that Mario 64 is held up so well because it was executed so well, which is, again, going to the first 3D, you see a lot of games that go into like, oh, well, this is the first. Like we talked about, GoldenEye was one of these first fully 3D rendered console shooters.
Yeah.
And it was quickly surpassed by its kin. 1080 snowboarding, all of the snowboarding games that came after it have beaten it. You can find almost...
of Time was, you know, surpassed by Majora's Mask.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. You look at and all these other adventure games, you look at these and you watch how they were good in their own right, but then there were games that were quickly better.
Didn't really happen with Mario 64.
And it didn't really happen with Mario 64. Nobody took that precise genre and tried to bring in their own slice of that pie. For quite a while, a lot of people try to compare Crash Bandicoot to it, but it's really a different game.
Because Crash was more 2D levels in a 3D space.
Yeah.
Exactly versus being a 3D world with 3D interactivity.
Yeah.
I would say there's definitely a comparable game on the N64 that, definitely outdid Mario 64, but I certainly think that in terms of the Mario series, I don't think really there's been a game that's as good until like Mario Odyssey. Because like
No.
Mario Galaxy is good and Mario Sunshine's good, but I don't think they quite hit the not perfection but near perfection of Mario 64.
And exactly, it really did, like, it took the crown and kept it for a very long time.
Yeah, definitely.
And
I do think it kind of peters out towards the end though, but I think for the most part it's really strong throughout.
I definitely agree that it hasn't been bettered until Odyssey.
And the nice thing is in Odyssey, spoiler warning for anybody who hasn't played Odyssey or beaten it yet, when you hit the Mushroom Kingdom in Odyssey and go to Peach's Castle that plays the classic theme, that was just like a nostalgia blast for me.
Yeah,
well, especially when you can get the N64 skin.
Yeah.
And then you jump in the paintings as well.
And it was all great. When I found the metal cap skin, I still haven't changed out of the metal cap outfit.
Yeah.
In Odyssey, but Mario 64 did so many great things. It evolved the power-up system while keeping it essentially the same.
Yeah.
You don't get a fire flower. There is no mega mushroom. There's no. They do have one-ups that pop out.
Caps, really, aren't you?
But you have the 3 caps, and at least in one level, you have to mix the caps. That's in not Jolly Roger, Dire Docks. You have to mix. Yeah, you have to mix the invisible cap with the metal cap, so you can go through a grate under the water.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's just quite brilliant. And then if you're like me as a kid and you Game Shark it, you can have like a metal flying cap and other crazy stuff.
Combinations, yeah. Although I will say that flying cap stage is really annoying.
Like the one where you actually have to get the flying cap, or are you talking about the cloud stage up by Tick-Tock Clock?
Well, to be honest, both of them are kind of annoying. The one by Tick-Tock Clock is the worst, though.
That is fair. Because the only thing that's there is 8 red coins, I think.
Yeah. But like with those flying ones, I find that when you fly, there's like occasional gusts of wind that burst you up higher. So you're aiming for these coins, and then suddenly you go whoosh, and you're like, shit, I've missed it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
which is actually funny because overall the flying was relatively well designed. It's more like the levels weren't designed around the flying. They did a good mechanic on the winged cap, but then they didn't put puzzles around it appropriately.
Yeah. To be honest, I kind of think the metal cap was the one I liked the most, and then the others were just kind of there.
Well, that and the metal cap theme was the
really good.
Power Star theme, but like heavy metal.
Yeah. Although despite not really liking the power-ups too much, I found that the levels were good enough to just enjoy anyway. Like, especially the lava world. I think that was probably my favourite. But I also quite like the snow level quite a lot as well.
The snow level.
Just for like the penguin race.
Snowman, was it the Frosty Snowland, which is the one with the big...
The one with the big penguin where you're racing him.
Yeah.
I don't remember the level.
Oh, Tall Mountain. No, Tall Mountain's later.
No.
Tall Mountain is cool though. It's like the very first snow level, and I think it's either the second or third level you can get into.
They had fun names.
I don't remember. It'll come back to me.
I don't remember the name.
But there's one where you've got to rescue a baby penguin, and it's like right next. Well, the thing is, it's like right next to the mother, and then you pick it and take it up to the mother. And she's like, "That's not my baby. Get it away from me." And you're like, "Okay."
And later on in life, you're going back and playing that. And you're like, "Wait a minute. Then whose baby is this?"
Exactly.
But I think overall the level design throughout the game is just brilliant.
Yeah, it was just very, very well done.
Cool mountain. Yeah. No, all the level designs were well done, and even when it felt a touch gimmicky, like was a Tiny Huge Island.
Yeah.
It was still fun.
Yeah, definitely.
they did the races in the game where you have to either race in your time down the slides, which was always my favorite part, was the 2 slide levels.
Yeah, those are cool.
Now, when you're racing Koopa the Quick, they're not frustrating. So many games have done the race the NPC down the slide or across the whatever. And the first one that you have to do is not that bad, but then the second one is just controller breaking hard.
Yeah.
I mean, Donkey Kong 64 is notorious for having a race, like half of the zones have a race in them, and the second time you approach the race for another banana coin or whatever you're getting from it is just the most frustrating, angering BS in the game.
Don't worry, I'm sure at one point we'll play Banjo-Tooie, then you'll see what frustrating race is all about. Once you get to Canary Mary, you'll see.
In fact, we talked about Odyssey just a little while ago. That has some really horrible races in it.
I like the races in that. The one where you're racing all the Koopa people.
All the Koopas, yeah. I really didn't. I couldn't do any of them.
Oh, I loved them. I was just trying to find shortcuts through the level just to cheese it.
That's actually in Seaside. Well, no, the Lake Kingdom. It's Lake Kingdom or Seaside Kingdom? It's the Lake Kingdom.
Yeah, you can get your way up the top of that thing and just kind of across.
Yeah, you can just cut it to the left, and there's actually a point on the jump where it won't let you jump off the cap.
Yeah.
Because you're not supposed to go up there, but if you throw the cap just right, you can hit it and barely make it on the ledge.
And like same with the Cooking Kingdom, whatever it's called, Luncheon Kingdom. You can basically go up the cliff behind you and just cut your way to the exit up top without having to go all the way around.
Yep.
I'll have to try that.
But yeah, I find doing those kind of things to be quite fun, to be honest. So I enjoyed the races.
But again, like in Odyssey and in 64, they weren't unfair.
Yeah.
They were difficult, but they weren't unfair, where one little the tiniest mistake means you're done.
Yeah. One thing I quite liked about this game was how much leniency it had with certain things, like with the 100 coins. There's not exactly 100 coins in the level. There's, like some there's 105, some there's 145, but you only have to collect 100. So it's not a stressful experience. It's not like, for example, Mario Sunshine, where you have to collect 100 coins, and you think, I've not seen any bloody coins on this level. Where are they? And they're all like hidden in stupid places, and it's quite a stressful experience.
You're talking about Noki Noki.
I'm talking about quite a few of them, to be honest, because there's a few levels. I mean, Noki Noki is quite notorious for it.
Yeah, because all that stuff's in the cliffside.
But even stuff like the one with the hotel, you've got to collect a specific number of coins before you go into the hotel, and then another specific number before you go into the casino. And I find that to be quite obnoxious because it's, you've got to be very specific about it. But in Mario 64, it's just like, have fun, go and find these coins, and we'll give you a star if you collect enough.
Yeah, it's not a mission, it's more of a bonus.
Exactly. And I kind of think that the game kind of benefits from that because it's still a challenge, but it never feels like it's punishing or it's something that you have to do as like a chore. Even on the likes of Rainbow Road, which has its issues, it's still very much doable to get 100 coins on it.
Mm-hmm. Another notable thing about the game, I felt, was the music. The OST was fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely superb.
Probably my favorite track is Jolly Roger Bay. I absolutely adore that track, and one of the things I love about it is it changes slightly depending on if you're in the water or if you've gone ashore. Whereas you're in the water, it stays a very soft melody, but like when in Jolly Roger Bay, when you go underwater into one of the caves, it picks up a beat and picks up the tempo just a tiny little bit.
Yeah.
And shifts the melody. Or like when you go in Dire Docks, when you leave the first area and go ashore by the submarine, it does the same thing. But you can go right back and switch the music back.
Yeah.
I think my favorite music is race music, actually.
Yeah.
It's definitely catchy.
That's quite cool. Yeah, it did have a
Which-
lot of good music.
Which I believe the race music is not the race music, the same track for Rainbow Ride.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Probably one of the worst levels in the game, or worst zones.
Yeah. So, what did people not like about the game? I mean, Rainbow Road's definitely up there, and I'm not a big fan of TikTok Clock either. What
Off
about
the
you,
top of
Jack?
my head, I mean, I liked pretty much all of it. I mean, I've never actually gotten 100% like right to the end, but I've got like probably about 75-80% into it, and
Do you just
while
mean the stars, or do you mean through the levels?
through the levels, and while there are some frustrating sections, the game kind of lets you choose your own level of challenge, because you can get like the bare minimum number of stars to unlock the next level, or
Yes.
you can go for 100%. So if there is something that you find terribly frustrating, you can
do something different.
yeah you can usually just skip it. So there isn't really anything for me that springs to mind that I really dislike too much about the game.
I always kind of thought that was one of the biggest points about Mario 64 is that you have to get 70 stars to beat the game, and you can get any 70 stars.
Yeah.
There's no requirements. And I think that Mario Sunshine kind of messed that up, because you've got to get the first 7 stars in every level. And I like having that freedom of choice, because, as you say, if there's a star you can't get, you can just get another star instead, and you can do what you want.
I concur with that. It really did open up. And the other thing was a lot of stars that actually allowed you to get them out of order. It would give you the clue for the next star, but if your maneuverability was good enough, or if you just went exploring, you could easily find a different star.
Yeah.
Assuming it wasn't locked behind a cannon or something like that.
Well, it's interesting because the game kind of encourages you to do that. Because the very first level, the first star you see is behind that cage with the chomp or whatever it's called. And yeah, as soon as you get it, it's actually the last star for that level. So then you see a list of all these blue stars, and you think, oh, there are all these stars in the level. So it encourages you to go exploring and find these other ones.
Yeah.
And it's like genius, really.
And then later on, as the game, as you get better, doing wall jumps and triple jumps and all that good stuff,
Yeah.
find out you can long jump basically anywhere.
Yeah, and you can do again, that's the good thing about having all these stars in the level, is you can do whatever you want to get to the star. You can go the long route, or you can find shortcuts by, as you say, wall jumping or doing these different techniques.
Later on later playthroughs through the game, it's quite. Then you start making your own challenges of, can I get this star? I need a cannon to get to this star. Can I get to it without that star or without that cannon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to take this route to get to this area, but I bet I can manipulate,
And bypass it.
my environment to skip all this.
Well, yeah, like the teleporters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The hidden teleportations. Those are always fun, too. Especially the first time you find one.
Yeah, on the first level to beat that race.
Doesn't he call you out for cheating if you use it?
He calls you out for cheating if you use the wing cap, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, but I always pass the race using that teleport, and he never says anything. One thing that I wasn't as fond of is the Bowser fights. I think the Bowser levels are really well designed, but I think the Bowser fights are quite anticlimactic, especially since you're doing the same thing every time.
I feel one of the problems, again, it is a little repetitive, and then the final Bowser fight is throw him into a bomb 3 times. I felt one of the problems that made the Bowser fights not only repetitive but frustrating was my only true qualm with the game, and that's the camera. It's not a smooth camera. It picks angles to go around you, and it's never the right angle. It's always just off a little bit.
And also, as well, I find that it's kind of stressful doing the twisting of the analog, because those analogs are very fragile, shall we say. I always feel like rotating the analog stick is going to knacker it, wear it down.
It's not the best thing ever. That's why everybody remembers Mario Party 2 and not the first Mario Party, or at least remembers Mario Party 2 fondly.
Well, they remember Mario Party and burning a hole in the palms of the hand.
Fun fact, a little off topic, with Mario Party, because it was such a problem, Nintendo Power back in the day was like, hey, look, if you have a copy of Mario Party, cut the UPC out of the back of the box, pop it in an envelope with your glove size, and mail it to this address, and we'll send you a free glove. And it was actually like a pretty nice like leather glove for the left hand with a reinforced leather palm on it. So for specifically because people were getting like these massive, horrible blister injuries from spinning the stick after, playing Mario Party all night long.
Yeah, it wasn't the best thing.
That's why that didn't return to Mario Party 2. They went with alternating A and B buttons later. It was a much better idea.
Well, I don't know.
It's a less painful idea, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's whether you want a blister on your hand or whether you want RSI.
But no, it's back to topic. I don't have anything really bad other than that camera. I don't have anything bad to say about Mario 64, and really, the camera is only its badness is only when it's acting up when you're in a position where you don't need, like sometimes in TikTok clock, it's not great,
Yeah, I'm not fond of TikTok clock, as I say, because I find the stage quite linear because it's just a very vertical stage, and it's quite draining having to do all these wall kicks and, all these dodgy little platforming maneuvers, as you say, with the dodgy camera and everything.
And and part of that was depending on when you jump into, which was a really cool mechanic, depending on the position of the hand on the clock, judged how fast the clock was moving, or how the clock was moving, period. Because, like, I want to say if the hands were both on 6, the clock locked up.
I think it's 12 o'clock.
It was 12 o'clock, yeah. 12 o'clock, the whole clock locks up. At 6 o'clock, if both hands are on 6, I think the clock moves in reverse.
Not sure about that. I only know about freezing the clock.
And then there's, like, the clock moving very slowly, which is generally the best one to do it on. And then there's the fast clock, which is, I don't know why anyone would actually pick that.
There are certain stars that are somewhat easier to get with the fast clock.
Really? Because it's just hard to get anywhere with the fast clock.
I remember needing to get it fast for one of them. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I know a lot of them are possible with the fast clock. It just depends on which one you're doing.
I think they're all probably possible.
Generally speaking, I just put it on frozen and got most of the stars that way.
Yeah, I mean that's the usual method.
Yeah, that's what I do.
TikTok clock was probably my least favorite of them all. I think I like Rainbow. Honestly, I think I like Rainbow Ride better than TikTok clock. Again, just because it was so vertical, and one misstep and you're either going to hit something and almost die, or you're just going to straight up die.
I actually don't quite like the stage design of Rainbow Road. I find it to be quite dull. Because a lot of the time you just sat on this magic carpet. It looks interesting and the music's nice, but I think I prefer TikTok clock, but honestly, I don't like either of them. But there are so many levels in the game, and the rest of them are really good, so it's never that much of an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty fond of all the levels. I will say that TikTok clock and Rainbow Ride definitely ramp the difficulty. I'm not as fond of them, but I still enjoy them to a degree.
Has anybody here taken advantage of some of the more famous skip glitches?
I have not.
No, I've never tried them.
Yeah, I've tried a few. Like the reverse long jump is quite fun. As you say, like the cannonless, getting that star without using the cannons, quite fun.
The hardest glitch in the game is probably the rabbit, because you have to catch the rabbit first.
Yeah, and that's quite difficult in itself. And then you've got to glitch it through the door.
And yeah, you have to like drop it in the door and then pick it up and then crawl in the door a little bit and then pick it up and drop it again, and it shoves you It shoves you out through the door, and then you can grab the rabbit through the wall.
I also have difficulty with the clip in the first level where you can get through the gate by using either the box or a bomb. I find that to be quite tricky to do as well.
I've never done that one, but it sounds a little bit
cool.
Better than running around terrified at 7 years old, trying not to get killed by the chain chomp.
I don't know, because you've got to pick up a bomb and then you throw it and quickly catch it again, and it becomes supersized and you end up flying backwards really fast. It's a bit tricky.
We'll have to try and execute that sometimes. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I tried it a bunch of times and then I just did it with the box instead, which was easier, but still not the easiest. But it's fun.
I can't think of a whole lot more to say about Mario 64 other than absolutely fantastic game that's stood the test of time. And if Nintendo was going to remake a single game, it should be that one.
I don't think they need to.
No, they don't need to.
Yeah, I don't think they need to.
If they were to bring it up to, nice, crispy, beautiful graphics, that'd be the one to do it on.
I mean, to be fair, we could just play Odyssey.
Yeah. And I think most of us have at this point.
Yeah.
Well then, take a quick break and move on to our final golden selection of this category.
Yeah.
It's a good one. The final selection on our Nintendo 64 console special is the well-known, well-loved Banjo-Kazooie. This game, also developed by Rare, and one of the first Rare, it was the first Rare collectathon, and spawned many games and really kicked off the genre as a whole, was released in 1998. And it's really, even though it's not it is it's a 3D platform, but it really feels like a super unique, coherent game. While there are other collectathon titles, even Super Mario 64 could be considered a collectathon in its own right, the Rare collectathon is actually its own subgenre after that, and we've even seen revivals in it as of late, like Ukulele, which...
Hat in Time and stuff like that.
Yeah, Hat in Time, all these games where it's just, they're very well laid out and unique. I played Banjo-Kazooie many, many years ago. I own a physical edition of it, and I never got really far into it. My game was Donkey Kong 64, which followed up Banjo-Kazooie, also produced by Rare, and I played that a lot. But with this, preparing for this episode, I've actually gotten well over halfway done with Banjo-Kazooie, and I must say it is an excellent, excellent title.
Yeah,
definitely.
I mean, when I played this back in the day, I just rented it, so I didn't get to do very much with it. This time around, I'm missing, I think, 6 notes and 1 puzzle piece, and that's it. So I've seen the whole game, and it's still incredible, even to this day.
I mean, the game is just so charming as well. Like, from the start of the game, you've got, they're having fun in the little house, and she's frolicking. It's Tui in Spiral Mountain. And then you've got the witch, and she's basically doing the Snow White thing, where she's asking who's the most beautiful, and she's speaking completely in rhyme. And the game just has this amazing feel to it, where it just feels like a really charming children's story.
It really generates a attractive atmosphere right out of the gate.
Yeah, definitely.
One of the most charming things I found was the voices of all the little collectibles, like the jiggies and the nuts and stuff like that. They had really fun, cute voices.
Thing is, it's weird because Ukulele did the same thing again, but with quite annoying little burbles and stuff. But in the Banjo games, they're mostly kind of cute.
I actually just finished up Gobi's Valley the stage Gobi's Valley last night, and one of the pyramids that you enter has a snake charmer in it.
Yeah.
And he goes in there and he's doing his little gibberish, but it's like yud 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 yud. I'm like, I'm sitting there thinking, I can't tell if this is mildly racist or really adorable.
Yeah. And I love Gobi as well in that level as well. Have you seen Gobi yet?
You're a real dick to Gobi the entire time.
I know.
Yeah.
And his whole voice, he sounds really distressed. He's like...
I like that when you hit him the second time, he's just like, I'm out of here. This place sucks. You all suck.
Well, he actually makes a reappearance at the final level of the game as well, which you won't have experienced yet.
No, I haven't gotten there yet.
All I'll say is that
that
things
was-
don't go as well either.
Nope.
You're not nice to him at that point.
Poor guy.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's just Banjo venting his rage, because everybody's an asshole to Banjo, too.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
You
that
take-
is true.
You take note, nobody is friendly to Banjo. Bottles is a dick. Banjo's Kazooie's rude to Banjo, pecking at him and yelling at him.
Yeah. Kazooie is just horrible to everyone. Thing is, it's quite funny because, like, Kazooie is such a horrible character, but again, she's quite lovable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a point in the second game which, I won't say too much, but one of the characters dies very early on in the game, and you meet his family, and Kazooie's making jokes about it because, like, the family doesn't know, and you just kind of think, should I be laughing at this? But yeah, it's really good. Like, I love all the characters in the game, like from the main characters like Gruntilda with a rhyme in to what's his name, Klungo, the sidekick.
Yeah.
Obviously you've got Banjo and Kazooie, and then even like all the little minor characters, like you've got what's his face? The polar bear from the Freeze Easy Peak.
The guy who likes to cheat. Or rather, not cheat, but set up unfair races so he can win.
Boggy, that's his name.
Yeah.
But he's quite funny as well because, he does cheat. But then as he's racing, he's like, oh, hey, woo. And I just love it.
Banjo-Kazooie, despite being a slightly different game, it is a good game to compare to, because it did come out many years later. It is good to compare to Mario 64 because it is another 3D platformer, and you can really see where things were better in Banjo-Kazooie and what they didn't do quite as well. Banjo-Kazooie does a thing, and I've always disliked this about the Mario games up until Mario Odyssey, where you get your star and then you have to leave.
Oh, yes, definitely.
So you can come back, whereas Rare and the Rare Collectathons, they were just like, all right, you got your collectible, you got your Jiggy, you got your golden banana. Let's just keep going and get another one.
Yeah.
You can enter each zone from the hub world, and you can just pretty much stay there until you've completed it.
Well, apart from 2 levels in the game.
Yeah, that was a little annoying, but not the worst thing ever.
It always throws me off that on Freeze Easy and Gobi, you need a move from the other level, which they're the only 2 levels like it, and I kind of feel like it spoils the game a little bit, just because the game kind of feels very tight, and that you can do each level and then move on to the next, and then those levels just throw things out of the mix.
It does throw it off just a little bit. The swamp, Bubble Goop Swamp, also encourages you to not get a certain Jiggy until you get your
speed shoes.
The speed shoes, and it makes it so much easier to do.
Yeah, I think the worst part about the 2 levels I mentioned before was that you can't actually get all the notes either. And because, well, on the N64 version, when you leave a level, it only saves your best note score.
Right.
So if you have to leave that level, you have to redo all the notes again. I think that's the part that annoys me the most. At least in Bubble Gloop, even if you wanted to do that Jiggy later, you can still get all the notes and then just get the Jiggies later. But
versus that's not allowed in Freeze Peak and Gobi's Valley.
Yeah, which is kind of annoying because you get to a point and then you're like, oh shit, I can't actually get any more. Yeah. And I think it's a little bit of a dick move because the game kind of puts this expectation that you can go in and, more or less 100% a level and then move on. And then this level is just like, nope, sorry.
I want to say DK64 did that a couple times too, where there was you'd get your upgrade. Like, it was really good about getting your upgrade that you needed in that level.
Yeah.
To 100% the level, but there was one area where you had to go back.
Well, at least it saves your progress. Yeah.
Yeah, no, DK64 does save your progress, so you don't have to go and find all 500 bananas.
It's the same with Banjo-Tooie. It saves your progress, and you do have to go back to all the levels at some point after you've gotten other moves or whatever. And I kind of think if that's what the game does, it's fine. But because Banjo-Kazooie has a very different approach, I think it does kind of put a dampener on it that you always have to remember that, otherwise you're going to get screwed over.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that set it apart from Mario 64, everything in Mario 64 was a machine to get more stars, whereas in the rare collectathons, like Banjo-Kazooie, is you had different things to collect to progress. You needed the jiggies to unlock the puzzles, but you needed the notes to unlock the doors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had health pickup. You had the health pickups, well, to expand your health. Yeah, to extend your life. And there's 2 honeycombs in each level, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's either 2 or 4.
Yeah, there's those to collect. Well, actually, now I think about it,
there's Jinjos to collect.
Yeah, the Jinjo, but the Jinjos are more like the red coins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where those just give you a jiggy when you find them. The permanent power-up concept was a nice upgrade to this genre, and it carried on. That honestly carried on to like lots and lots of games where you're just improving yourself overall.
Yeah,
that's one of the things I liked about it as well, is getting these new moves and being able to do other things. It gives the game a very sort of Metroidvania type feel to it, where you're getting new powers and you just get stronger and can access new areas.
But the levels, they're reinforcing those techniques in new ways.
Yeah, definitely.
No, definitely.
I think with you getting like a lot of new moves, that would have, if they designed the levels so that it did save your note score and stuff like that, you could have areas in the levels which needed these other moves to access. So when you got the move in a later level, you could go back and get it and get those notes that you missed. But as you said, with the fact that you have to get all the notes again every single time, I think that was like a bit of a missed opportunity. Yeah,
well, the sequel actually does that, where you need to go back and use certain moves. And, as I said before, I can appreciate not doing that with the levels, just to kind of keep them more or less self-contained, apart from, obviously, those 2 levels. But, yeah, I still kind of like the concept, and I think as a foundation for it, because this was kind of the next step on from Mario 64, I think it does it pretty well.
No, I felt that the level designs they didn't overall feel as big as Mario 64, but they felt better than Mario 64.
Yeah, I think the levels seem to be a lot better designed and seem to be full of life in general. Like, even just like little touches.
I would say it's like they put more into smaller levels.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot more going on. Obviously, you had like in the swamp, you had the turtle who you needed to do things with. They had more little pocket zones. You walk in the crocodile's nose and then eat snakes. I don't know what they were smoking when they thought of that, but it's still fun.
Yeah, and then there's like the Halloween level where there's the haunted house, and then you've got the disembodied hands playing the piano, and you've got the graveyard, the swamp, the well. And
the desert has the desert has all of the pyramids and the mazes and puzzles to do.
Yeah, I mean, you think of each level and you think of all these different areas in it, but then you actually think about the actual map size, and the map size is actually pretty small. But they put so much into it that it feels like there's so much going on.
I actually had a bit of an opposite opinion to everyone else, really, regarding the levels. I did not like the level design for most of the levels, and I actually thought they paled in comparison to Mario 64. There are a few levels which I thought were really well designed. A lot of them, I needed a map. I had to go online, download a map, and print it out in order to kind of like find my way through and use guides and stuff like that, because I didn't find the level design layout to be intuitive at all.
Maybe it's just you and maps. I think
Maybe.
for almost every game we've played, you've needed a map for.
Yeah,
But-
it's good to have a map.
Yeah. I mean, some of the levels I can sort of see that, finding certain areas. But I kind of think that the compact nature, I'm not sure it needs it. I think maybe for the sequel, you kind of need a map. The game, those games, the maps are huge and sprawling. But this one, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm so familiar with the game that obviously now I don't need it, but...
It definitely would have benefited having one at least for the hub world.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. The hub world is the most frustrating part of Banjo-Kazooie, especially since sometimes you have to pass up the zone entry, like Gobi's Valley. You go into the room, and then there's Gobi's Valley, but then you have to go past that to find the puzzle for Gobi's Valley.
Yeah, I think some of them are a bit of a dick move. Like, the one I always remember is for Click Clock Wood, how it's actually under the water in the Treasure Trove Cove.
Yeah, it's
And I was looking
it's so
everywhere for it,
early,
and I
and
was like,
you don't even see TikTok Wood for a while, or Click Clock Wood.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, like, I remember finding that puzzle piece and like, okay, I can't get to it now, and forgetting about it. And then later on, by the time I actually, went around to unlocking the level, I completely forgotten about that area.
Mm-hmm.
I
So that
did
was
like-
a odd design choice.
Yeah, I did like how they incorporated the hub world into the jiggies, where you unlock like those witch switches, which unlock a jiggy in the main area. Like one blows the hat off the Gruntilda statue.
One of them opens up the casket.
Yeah, the sarcophagus for you to jump on.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. And then you've got like, oh yeah, like in the hub world as well, you have Brentilda, the witch's sister, who tells
Yeah.
you all strange secrets.
These just kind of gross things that you kind of wish you actually didn't know.
Yeah, and I don't know if you realise this, but every time you turn on the game, or not every time you turn on, but every time you start a new save file, it has different answers. So she'll say one thing, but the next thing she'll say the same basic structure, but if she's like, oh, she likes bugger sandwiches, and the next time she'll say she likes turd burgers or something.
Does that change the answers in the quiz at
The
the
quiz.
end as well?
Yes, it does. So you can't just memorize what the answers are because it changes every time you play the game.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah,
So it's a bit of pain.
because I have the guide for the N64 version, and playing it, one of the questions came up, and it was like I'd seen that from Brentilda, but then when I looked at the answers they listed, it was something different. So that explains it.
Yeah, I don't know if there are a certain number of patterns where if you talk to a few of them, you know what your pattern is for this save file, or whether it's just randomized for all of them. But yeah, I always either guess them in the quiz or just avoid those squares.
Yeah.
Interesting. But I'll have to do a run through the hub world before I go and take that quiz.
Yeah, definitely. Oh,
And,
yeah, you've not done the quiz yet.
I've not done the quiz yet. I assumed that's what, because you mentioned the quiz, I assumed that's what the topic was going to be about.
Well, there are quite a few things in the quiz. What about you guys? Stephen, Matt, did you play through the quiz part?
No,
Yes.
I actually watched a video of it. I got as far as Gobi Valley. I finished that level, but that's as far as I got, so I watched a video for the others.
I am actually sitting right in front of the actual final fight, so I've been through the game show.
The quiz is fantastic. the music for it's great, and you go across this this board game a space at a time, and sometimes you'll have questions about the levels, sometimes about the music or sound effects, sometimes it's the Brentilda things, sometimes you have to do like a little mini game, and it's so well done. It's
Like,
really a joy to play.
Every time you get something right, the crowd boos. Every time you get something wrong, they cheer.
Yeah, and then you get like damaged a little as well.
You mentioned the sound effects while we're like on that subject. Has anyone noticed that several of the sound effects are also used in Crash Bandicoot?
I'm not familiar with Crash Bandicoot, so I'm not
Same.
sure.
Never had a PlayStation growing up.
You know what? I swore I heard the yell at some point, but I wasn't sure.
And I think it's when you pick up those magic mushrooms, the noise for that, the Tiki mask in Crash Bandicoot makes that noise as well. It is the exact same sound. So I don't know if maybe there is some kind of stock library somewhere that they both borrowed from, or if there's some kind of development crossover with these sound teams.
Quite possibly. Speaking of sound effects, I think my favorite one is when you ground pound the turtle's flippers in the swamp. I really like the swamp level.
Yeah, the swamp level's pretty cool.
But when you ground pound his hands, his yell is just like you slam his hand. He's like, "Rah!" And then he's like, "Man, I feel a lot better now."
Well, one other thing about the game as well, which we've not covered yet, is Mumbo and the transformations, which, is quite a cool thing that the game introduced. Mm-hmm. When you'll visit the shaman with these skull tokens, and he'll transform you into different things. So the swamp level you mentioned, it turns you like into a mini little crocodile.
Mm-hmm. But, and like in the Freezy Peak, he turns you into a walrus.
Yeah, and you get turned into a bumblebee for the final level, which is, maybe the best transformation in the game.
I mean, certainly one of the most useful.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
What else do you get turned into? I'm trying to think. You get turned into a termite.
There's a termite in the first level.
I found it interesting.
And there's a pumpkin in the...
I found it interesting that you didn't get a transformation in every single level, though.
No, that was a bit weird. It's something that the sequel does do, but yeah, in this one, it's more or less every other level.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. Maybe it's to do with limitations, or maybe they just wanted to mix it up a little bit and not have them all the time.
Don't worry about it too much.
I suspect there were some that they cut, because if you look at the Mumbo tokens you need to activate them, there's a lot more of those in the game than you need to get all the transformations.
But that could be like with Mario 64's coins, where they just, throw in extra ones to make sure that you have enough.
Right.
Yeah.
And I believe Donkey Kong 64 did that too, because you need banana coins to give to Cranky, and he gives you powers and whatnot. And there is way, way more banana coins than there are buyable upgrades.
Oh, okay.
So that might have been the thought behind that, just to make sure that you could do it.
Yeah.
No, I was going to mention that earlier, and that compares to Mario 64. That's closer to like the cat power-ups, and how it's just sort of this specific thing that you need to do either to get a specific Jiggy or get notes in that level. But it doesn't carry you through. It doesn't carry... Well, no, because there's a couple items that you get outside of the level, because you can carry the transformation out the door a little ways. But it doesn't. But you can't go and be a termite in Freezy Peak.
Well, there is actually a trick you can do where you can be the bumblebee in like any level, more or less.
Oh.
Well, because you can fly.
Yeah, you can basically clip through part of the wall so it doesn't register the point where Mumbo turns you back. And you can enter like Rusty Bucket Bay as the bumblebee, and it just makes it like a whole lot easier.
I'll have to give that a shot when I get there. I wonder if they patched that for the Xbox Live version.
I don't think it works in the Xbox Live version. And I think that in the North American version it doesn't work. As far as I'm aware, I think it's only available in the PAL version for some reason.
Okay.
But you should definitely watch a video on it. It's called the Reverse Beat Adventure, and it's pretty cool.
Speaking of things that don't work, there is that I got looked up deeper into this last night. There is a key in Freeze Easy Peak.
Haha.
I was wondering if we were going to talk about this.
On the N64 version, apparently it doesn't do anything.
Well,
Nothing.
there's actually the key, and there's a bunch of like secret eggs as well that you can find. And what happened is it was going to be like a special transfer thing for the next game, and they were going to basically do like what Sonic and Knuckles did, where you plug the game into the other game and you can transfer them across. But that never happened.
I guess there was supposed to be a little bit of crossover with DK64 as well. With the key. The key was supposed to do something for DK64, and they dropped the idea for whatever reasons.
Well,
but
originally it was called Stop and Swap, and it was basically you would get the item, turn the game off, switch to the other game, and it would register in the other game.
Yeah.
And you were supposed to have a 10-second window to do that. When they changed some of the hardware on the N64, that became a 1-second window, making it impossible.
Yeah.
See, I know. Now I know on the XBLA version, or if you have the rear, it unlocks a special transformation for Banjo-Tooie, and it gives you something for Nuts and Bolts as well.
Is there an extra transformation in Tooie?
No, it gives you there's Banjo-Tooie has the dragon transformation.
Yeah.
And I guess it gives you like extra powerful fire breath and something else.
So it just ups it. Okay.
Well, I think the key opens some kind of door in Banjo-Tooie.
Mm-hmm.
And the eggs do something else. But yeah, like they basically added in the functionality that was originally supposed to be there for the Xbox versions.
Made it work.
And you can get bonus parts for Banjo Nuts and Bolts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which isn't a bad game.
I've heard mixed reviews about that game. I'll give it a shot.
It's a game that I rather enjoyed once I got into it. Once I got the feel with how to play it, I did actually quite enjoy it, but it's very flawed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe
the good thing is there are 3 proper Banjo games and then Nuts and Bolts, so it doesn't matter.
Right, because there's Grunty's Revenge too, which I really do hope we get around to playing sometime, because I've played it before and it's quite excellent.
Yes, and it's on the list in one of our topics, I believe, to cover in the future. So
hopefully we get to that topic
at some point. But yeah, anyway, with Banjo-Kazooie, what did you all think of Rusty Bucket Bay? That's basically my one sore point in the game. I love the music, despise the level.
I didn't get to Rusty Bucket Bay yet. That's, I think, my next stop. But
which one is Rusty Bucket Bay?
It's the one on the ship.
Is that the one with the mechanical shark?
No, that's the second level. This is the one on the big boat, and the water is just all oil.
Basically,
and most of it's on top of the boat.
It's 2 levels past Gobi's Valley.
Yeah. What you need to do is you need to lower the water level and then raise the water level a bunch of times in the hub world, and then you swim through the door.
So
right,
it's
it's
the water temple from Ocarina of Time.
No, because you don't actually go underwater. You go underwater to access the level when you're in the hub world, but when you're actually in the hub, it's a dock and like this huge, just this huge ship, really. And whilst you can go in the water, you'll get hurt because it's poisonous oil or something. So you really don't want to be in there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I wasn't very fond of the level. I mean, I can see some of the stuff that was in there was pretty okay, but it's just,
I like the idea, but the level's very obnoxious.
I remember which one it was now. It's the one with all the portholes on the side of the ship, and you don't know which ones you need to get into, and...
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you do. It's clear which ones you can open. You can kind of see it. But there's like this one jiggy where there are rotating fan blades and gear parts, and you activate a switch, then you've got to run outside and go underwater and go through these fan blades. And, yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah, that's the one Jiggy that I'm missing in the entire game.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Well, it doesn't sound like the best time, but I'm pretty sure it can't be worse than a handful of other water levels.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's not really water level because you're never really in the water, but yeah, it's not the best level.
But
And
the swimming and flying overall in this game, I really did not enjoy.
The swimming was the swimming wasn't great. Though I've had worse flying. It takes a little bit to get used to, but the swimming was bad.
I don't mind the flying in this. They definitely improved the flying, well, and the swimming in the second game. But I think the flying in this game's okay. The swimming, yeah, is pretty difficult to do, but there aren't that many places you actually need to do it.
There's one Jiggy on the second level at the top of a lighthouse that you need to fly to, and I must have spent about 10-15 minutes trying to get that because I just overshot it a little bit and had to swing back round. And
What, on top of the
when I got back up-
lighthouse?
Yes.
You know you can break the door at the bottom and just climb up.
Can you?
Yep.
You can break the door to the lighthouse and there's a ladder up the top. You don't actually have to land on top of the lighthouse.
Well,
You
that
just
would
have to land on
helped.
that islandy bit.
I wish I'd known that.
But yeah, I know what you mean. It's not the tightest flying. It does definitely improve in the second game. But yeah, I still think the flying's okay. The swimming is a bit wonky though.
Overall, though, a very, very excellent game.
Yeah.
So
One
I think
final
we-
thing I'd like to
Nope.
make mention of as well is I know that you've not seen it yet, Ryan, but you've seen it in video, Matt and Stephen. You've got there as well. The final boss, I think the final boss is just so well designed because it's
Yeah.
designed to basically use all of your moves, more or less.
It's visually gorgeous to look at, I can say that.
Yeah, it's not an easy fight, but it's very well designed.
That's what I'm looking forward to, and I'm pretty close to it. So
Yeah, it's good. I mean, the second game as well even tops that because it throws in like the quiz mechanic as well into the fight,
Oh, nice.
which is interesting. But yeah, you should definitely 100% the game. There's not really any kind of reward for 100% in it that I can remember.
Just pride.
Yeah, I don't think there is any kind of reward. I think that if you're like 99% of the way complete, you can access the final note doors that are around the final boss, and
Yeah.
you can get upgrades for your weapons and everything. And you can get the double health where your health bar gets doubled, so you've got loads of extra health for the final boss.
Cool.
Yeah.
All
good.
right. I think we can wrap up our game discussion there. I'm pretty sure everybody here thoroughly loved Banjo-Kazooie.
Oh yeah.
Being or at least at worst, very much enjoyed it. Maybe not loved, but enjoyed it. We have I think it's 2 more things to briefly discuss, and we'll take a quick break, and we'll come back to that. All right, and I think we're going to give our final thoughts right about now of what our favorite game was out of this set. Adam, would you like to kick it off?
Well, for me, I have a very close history with GoldenEye. I played it like a hell of a lot as a kid, and it's one of the games I speedrun, so I have a very intimate knowledge of the game, well, as far as single player goes. However, I'm fully aware that it does pale in comparison to likes of Perfect Dark, and I think I'm going to give my vote this time to Banjo-Kazooie. Even though I don't like Rusty Bucket Bay at all, I just think it's a superb game with loads of charm, and even though it's not as good as the sequel, in my opinion, I still think it's just a fantastic 3D platformer.
All right, what do you think, Stephen?
I've got a similar opinion, just with Mario 64 instead of GoldenEye. I mean, like I said, that was one of the first games I got for the N64. I've 100%ed it and once, almost did it a second time. But as far as this is concerned, I think Banjo-Kazooie is definitely the one I would pick.
All right, and what about you, Matt?
For me, it's a clear choice. As one of my top 2 N64 games, along with Ocarina of Time, Mario 64 is definitely for me the best of the bunch this time. It just holds so much memory for me. Just the level design, everything about the game, I just love it a hell of a lot.
And I'm going to have to bring this to a split decision by agreeing with you with Mario 64. It packs so much nostalgia, and I've sunk in more hours than I'm probably I'm not comfortable admitting to sinking so many hours into the game. I have 100%ed it on multiple occasions. I've done multiple speed runs and glitched runs through. And then just like casual run through as well, where I'm not going for 100%. I just want to beat it over the past, oh Lord, 23 years. Wow. No, 22 years. I absolutely love the game. It holds up so well. It stood the test of time. It is a classic, and it always will be. And it's one of my favorite games of all time, just straight up. I liked Banjo-Kazooie a lot. I think had I played Banjo-Kazooie before Mario 64, I might have been flipped on this decision. But I'm not. Nostalgia goes a long way to make a decision.
Yeah, they are both great games, though.
So, if you can pick up any of these games, they're all good games to pick up. 1080 being the weakest, but definitely an experience. Fortunately, I believe 1080 is also the cheapest on this list. 1080 will run about $10 on eBay. I'm sure you can find, if you can find it at a garage sale or at a local shop, you can get it for cheaper. The other three titles run for about 20 to 30, depending on if you get them boxed or not. If you can find Banjo-Kazooie for $20, $25, it's a super, super good buy. Now, one of the things that is harder to buy that is good, unlike N64 games, is N64 controllers. At 22 years old, a lot of these controllers are dying. A lot of the aftermarket ones were just shit to begin with. The analog sticks, we could do an entire episode based on just terrible controllers, and we probably should at some point. But the N64 is just one of those controllers where there's a lot of aftermarket models and they're not that great, or they're exactly the same as the N64 was brand new, which was not the best controller out there.
Right.
But with a revival and a seemingly surprising revival in a lot of retro gaming, we've seen some new controller designs pop up, and one of the ones that made a splash very recently, had a very, very successful Kickstarter campaign, was Retro Fighter's Nintendo 64 controller. It was a complete redesign, and it just so happens that Steven owns one.
Yeah, I was one of the.
I'm assuming it's a Kickstarter edition. Yeah, it's a backers version. And I'm going to hand this over to you, Steve, and you can do a really quick review on what is good, and maybe if there's something not good. Brutal honesty is good here, because this is more or less non-paid advertising, but for the people who like the N64 and have broken controllers, this is opportunity to know where they can replace their controllers and get something that works again.
Basically, what they did with this controller was they took the N64 controller and tried to compress it into a modern gamepad style. Similar to what Hori did with their gamepad, but I've not met many people that actually like the Hori gamepad. This one I am quite fond of. This is the gamepad I used for everything I played on the N64 itself with this podcast. And it is just, I love the way it feels. I love that it's, it feels just like the more modern controllers, just with N64 buttons. And, it feels great. It works great. The only flaw, and they addressed this right after they released them, is that if you hold the L button and move the stick at the same time, you can feel it. Like, you can feel where the L button is. And that was just a small oversight that they had. But other than that, the controller works fantastically. The buttons are all very responsive. The triggers feel nice because you've got two of them now. The stick is not the hard plastic analog stick that it was in the past. It's much more akin to the GameCube stick.
How's the responsiveness on that analog stick? Because I know like the N64 actually would quickly, those even brand new, those controllers would pretty quickly develop pretty terrible dead zones.
Yeah, I have not noticed any of that with mine. I mean, I have picked it up and it's been just as good, if not better, than my original N64 controllers. I mean, I still have some of those original controllers that I got, Christmas 1997. And, some of them, whether from not being used for a while or being taken care of, are still work really well. This works just as good and sometimes better.
And also, it looks like it's a bit more comfortable for bigger hands.
It definitely is. It fits so well in large hands. I found one other controller that fit my larger hands that well, and it was a Mad Catz controller that was just the standard N64 controller, but slightly bigger.
Mm-hmm. I think I've seen that one. I think you shared a picture of that one a while back, and I've seen one that was similar to it. The problem with the classic N64 controller was it was fine when you're 10, because you don't have big man hands yet. But then as you grew up and got bigger, the controller definitely didn't get bigger with you.
Yeah. And this does not have that issue. It fits very well in my hands. I like the way it feels. And I like the look of it.
Yeah, it looks really slick.
Yeah. They are doing additional colors. I don't have the list in front of me.
I thought I saw something about them. They're going to do an atomic purple.
I believe so, because that was one of the most requested ones during the Kickstarter.
That translucent purple. I still have a atomic purple N64 controller. It works pretty well. It's definitely the stick is getting a little waggly, but it functions. I'm probably going to pick one of these up when they come out, because after I get my N64 fixed, it is part of it has failed. It is repairable, but I need to fix it. But I'll be picking one of these up because I do have a lot of games on there, and I will be getting more of them. Yeah, and this does look like an excellently good time.
Oh yeah, it is superb. I will definitely pick up another one at least. The only thing that might be a hiccup for somebody is it does have a turbo on it, which I know some speedrunning organizations don't allow you to use controllers with turbos.
Right.
So that could be a caveat depending on if you're involved in that kind of situation.
Mm-hmm. Not going to be a go-to for not going to be a go-to. Well, then again, the nice thing is if you're really into the N64, there are mod kits for the controllers that replace the sticks with something a little bit more modern as they wear out. But that's a little bit more in-depth for your average retro gamer.
Yeah, I mean, for your average player, I highly recommend this controller.
If you're into speedrunning, you probably have a little bit more going on than just looking for a controller to enjoy some Smash Bros. Or something with.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this looks like it says here. Right now they just have the standard flat gray. I saw something about atomic purple. They'll probably kick out a black one, I'm going to assume. I haven't seen the full
orange
list.
Was on the list, too. I think orange was on the list.
So that's something to look forward to. These are they're open for pre-order right now. They'll be, I think it said it'll be shipping very early July, depending on it'll be first come, first serve. They'll be servicing in the order of the pre-orders. So if they run out and you got in the pre-order late, you're just going to have to wait a little bit. I don't know if the price is going to go up afterward, but the pre-order is $29.99, and that's not bad for a modernized controller. That's actually pretty cheap, all things considered. So
I paid $20 for mine for the Kickstarter. I thought that was a fantastic price for that.
So $30 for a brand new controller from Retro Fighters. Pre-orders are available now. If you're listening to this, Retro Fighters, we just gave you a little bit of free advertising because apparently you make a quality product.
Yeah, I'm sure they're listening to this.
I'm sure they're like, maybe if it gets around, maybe someone will throw us a bone like we threw them one and share.
Yeah.
Get some of that internet money. Probably not.
Do they do international shipping as well?
I believe I want to say yes.
Because I would definitely like to pick one up because I don't like the N64 controller at all.
Worst comes to worst, somebody can get one and post it to you.
Yeah, right.
Please contact you if you are outside of the U.S. and we'll get you connected with one of our future retail partners.
All right. That's what we'd like to hear. So technically not yet, but soon. I'll probably be picking one of these up pretty soon, as soon as they are available. I'll probably get my N64 fixed first. There's no point in having a controller if it's not working. Right. And we have one more announcement to make before we close up here, and that is we are having a relevant giveaway. I'm sure, I think Adam will have more details on possibly where. We'll definitely have a link to the effectively a raffle. There's no pay-in for it, but it is a random drawing. We'll have a link on on the Retro website and probably the Retro Odyssey Facebook page.
Yes, we will.
We are going to be I'll be taking Banjo-Kazooie, a physical copy from my personal collection, and it has been nicely cased up in a new case, not the old cardboard case, because I've never even seen that. I bought a new clasp case for it, so it'll have a signed letter. There is no manual, unfortunately, but hopefully a letter from us will do. We won't tell you how to play the game, but it will tell you that it exists. Yeah, there'll be a site where you can enter to win. It'll be a random drawing. So this will be, I will be shipping anywhere in the world for it. So if you live in the UK or the EU or anywhere else, you'll still get it. So
basically what it is a Gleam raffle, which if anyone's ever done this, you go on, you just click a couple of boxes to basically get your draws. You can just enter just anywhere, but you can do some other things like visit our webpage or subscribe to the channel or whatever, or take part in a poll. They'll give you extra bonus entries, and then Gleam will automatically pick one of those random entries, and that's the winner.
For those that aren't aware of the website address as well, if you want to grab a pen, it's Retro Odyssey, all one word, then 505053258.com. It isn't a pretty web address, but it's the web address that we have. So if you go to there once the competition is live, there will be a link on there.
Rolls right off the tongue. What are you on about?
Well, I think this upcoming, when we renew our website, we'll renew it for a much simpler. I'll front some cash, and we'll get a much simpler, coherent web page.
Yeah.
Or web address for that. It's a lot of numbers to remember.
Yeah.
All right, and we'll probably run that raffle for what, 2-3 weeks?
We'll might as well run it for maybe a few weeks or something, and then we can announce it more or less the same time as when the next podcast goes out.
Yeah,
we won't
sounds
announce
fine.
it on the next podcast because we'll be recording that one a little bit earlier. But when we post it up, we'll also post up another post with the winner.
Works.
All right. Sounds fantastic. Well, I think that basically wraps it up. Adam, if you want to take the wheel again and steer us out of here.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot. You've done a good job, and I think we can all agree that the N64 was a fantastic console, and you've picked some fun games as well. It was a nice little change from last month, that's for sure. But next time we'll be covering puzzle games, classic puzzle titles. So make sure to stay tuned next month for that episode. All that's left for us to do now is say goodbye, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.